Good Thursday afternoon, and thanks for joining us on Kare 11 News Now. I'm Lauren Lemanchek. New today, the Minnesota BCA has been shut out of the investigation into the deadly shooting of Renee Good by an ICE agent in Minneapolis. According to the BCA, they have, quote, reluctantly withdrawn from the case after the U.S. attorney decided the FBI alone would lead the case, and BCA investigators would not have access to case materials, evidence, and interviews. Here's part of the full statement from the BCA. Quote, without complete access to the evidence, witnesses, and information collected, we cannot meet the investigative standards that Minnesota law and the public demands. As a result, the BCA has reluctantly withdrawn from the investigation. The BCA Force Investigations Unit was designed to ensure consistency, accountability, and public confidence, none of which can be achieved without full cooperation and jurisdictional clarity. The BCA says they expect the FBI to conduct a thorough and complete investigation, and that the full investigative file will be shared with the appropriate authorities. Minnesota's Department of Public Safety Commissioner Bob Jacobson says Minnesota should be a part of this investigation.
We would welcome the opportunity to jump back in, to do that investigation, use our high-quality investigators from the BCA to be able to do that with them, to find the answers that the public deserves. Without any of that information, or without any of that assistance from the FBI or the federal government, we would be at a loss to be able to initiate and conduct a thorough investigation.
New this afternoon, Governor Tim Walz gave an update on the public safety situation in Minnesota, calling out the Trump administration for taking Minnesota's crime investigators off of the case.
And I just want to make this as clear as possible to everyone. Minnesota must be part of this investigation. These are nonpartisan career professionals that have spent years building the trust of the community. There's a BCA Force Investigations Unit that was created by the legislature, by the people of Minnesota, to provide an independent, consistent, and trusted mechanism for investigating the use of force incidents involving law enforcement officers.
The governor also urging Minnesotans to exercise their First Amendment rights and protest, but to do it peacefully. Right now, the Minnesota National Guard has been put on notice should they need to be activated. That shooting is making tensions very high across Minnesota and the country. Hundreds of people today protesting ICE at the Whipple building, where the federal agents work out of in the Twin Cities. You can see the large crowds gathered. On the ground, agents did deploy pepper balls and tear gas to try to get people to disperse. Now, we're getting two different perspectives on what exactly happened during the shooting. Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem speaking about the shooting again this morning in New York and saying this about the officer who pulled the trigger.
This is an experienced officer who followed his training, and we will continue to let the investigation unfold into the individual and continue to follow the procedures and policies that happen in these use of force cases. But let's remember the events that surrounded what happened yesterday on that tragic situation was that these individuals had followed our officers all day, had harassed them, had blocked them in. They were impeding our law enforcement operations, which is against the law. And when they demanded and commanded her to get out of her vehicle several times, she did not. This was an act of domestic terrorism.
At the heart of this investigation will be video of the shooting, which has surfaced from multiple different angles. But even the video evidence is causing opposing views from the community, political leaders, and even experts. I talked to some use of force experts about what they see. First, the video. This angle shows agents repeatedly telling the driver to get out of the car. The driver then backs up, and as soon as she drives forward, you hear 3 shots fired. A federal agent reholsters his gun as the red SUV crashes into another car. Another angle shows the driver appearing to wave her arm to let another vehicle pass. Then a different vehicle pulls up and more officers get out. Again, you hear them repeatedly tell her to get out of the car. An officer approaches and pulls on the door, and you see the driver back up, then start to drive forward. That's when you hear the gunshots. Look at that video in slow motion. The officer at the front bumper draws his weapon and fires once at the front, then 2 more shots into the driver's window.
The main issue here is going to be with whether the officer in question reasonably believed that his life was in serious jeopardy.
Use of force expert Ed Obayashi reviewed the videos and sees why, in that moment, the officer could have believed that.
I believe that the officer may have a reasonable justification for firing his weapon.
But two other use of force experts see something different.
It was an improper use of deadly force.
Dr. Roy Taylor says it doesn't look to him like the driver was trying to ram the officer.
This ICE agent put himself in the path of the vehicle. He drew his pistol before the vehicle even started moving.
And Jeff Noble agrees, saying officers are trained to avoid situations like this.
A reasonable officer would have moved to the side of the vehicle immediately and not been standing in front of the vehicle. Certainly, if there was enough time for the officer to draw and fire their handgun, there was enough time for the officer to move out of the way. And that's what the officer should have done.
So you can see disagreement on that key question. Would a reasonable officer believe he was in imminent danger? But one thing all the experts agree on, these cases are hard, and it's too soon to draw any definitive conclusion. A lot more investigation needs to be done. There are still so many questions to answer about what happened. Kare 11 will have continuing coverage as we learn more on air, online, and right here on Kare 11 Plus. New today, new video showing an apparent ICE incident at Roosevelt High School in Minneapolis on Wednesday. This video from Evan Johnson shows several law enforcement vehicles outside Roosevelt. We're told this was happening around dismissal time yesterday. You can see a large crowd gathering near one of the doors, and then there's some sort of scuffle and some people end up on the ground. According to NPR, Border Patrol officers were at the school around dismissal and handcuffed two school staff members. The Department of Homeland Security says they only ended up near Roosevelt because they were chasing someone who was getting in the way of immigration operations. The man who shot this video says everything happened very fast.
Agents started materializing and rushing to these little skirmishes all over, and they just started coming out of the vehicles, I guess. I saw in the video that one gentleman with the dreadlocks who was arrested. There was just kind of a little scuffle over by the school, and then all of a sudden it looked like, a dozen or more, maybe 24 agents came running up.
This story will be developing all day. We'll bring you any updates on it right here on Kare 11 Plus. Just in today, the Senate has voted to advance a resolution to block President Trump from using military force, quote, within or against Venezuela without congressional approval. Meantime, right now, President Trump's administration trying to assert its control over Venezuelan oil. That's after seizing a pair of sanctioned oil tankers and saying it intends to control the distribution of Venezuela's oil products globally, following its ouster of President Nicolas Maduro in a surprise nighttime raid. NBC's Gabe Gutierrez reports from neighboring Colombia.
The Trump administration is ramping up its efforts to control Venezuela's oil, and the president is now reiterating that this will not be a short-term plan. The president signaling that the U.S. could be involved in Venezuela for years. In a new interview with the New York Times, the president was asked how long it could take, a few months, a year. The president saying it could be much longer. Now, the president also saying that he intends to rebuild Venezuela's oil industry, and when he was asked if he would insert American troops into the country if it blocked access to oil, he said, "I can't tell you that." Now, tensions over oil are playing out on the global stage. The United States seizing 2 oil tankers in the North Atlantic, posting video online. Now, in Colombia, there were protests yesterday protesting U.S. actions inside Venezuela. Also some counter demonstrations as well. But this all comes as President Trump had harsh words for Colombia's president earlier in the week, calling him a, quote, sick man. Well, overnight, the president revealing that he had a phone call with Gustavo Petro. He called it a great honor, that he appreciated the Colombian president's tone, and added that he plans to meet with him at the White House soon. Now, this all comes as President Trump has been rapidly upending American foreign policy that has been around for decades. The president now signing a memorandum ordering the U.S. to withdraw from 66 international organizations and bodies that he says are contrary to the interests of the United States, many of them associated with the United Nations. Back to you.
Stick with us. There's more news and weather coming up after the break.